Hello, Internet.
Hi.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another meeting of the Interstellar Book Club, which is the sci-fi book club. You can find us on Discord, where we vote for the books that we read every month. This month, we are going to talk about This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar. And we have our hosts with us here today. So let's take a second to go around and introduce each of our hosts. You know me, I'm Steph. Welcome. And I can do this. Wait. Nah. There we go.
First time.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm sick, but I'm here and I read the book, so that's a win.
Hey, I'm Max from Max Reads. I do single book reviews when I'm back, eventually off extended hiatus. But I, too, am here. Tina.
Hello, I'm Tina from Sound and Fury Book Reviews. I am here somehow, so that's good.
Yay. We made it. All right. And we have Roro here. Hi, Roro.
Hi, Roro.
Yay. Yes, Tina's here with us, which is great. So we're hoping to have as many of the hosts with us as much as possible, assuming that the books continue to be awesome. Hello, hello. Thanks for coming. Yay. Sila's here. Oh my gosh. Yay, friends. Yay. The poetry was poeting.
Yes, yes. This is poetry, and I will stand by that.
We have a lot to talk about. Cool. All right, so we're gonna keep it non-spoilery as best as we can for a little bit. So we'll start with that. How do we describe what this book is about? Is there anyone that wants to take a crack at it?
I mean, it's like, okay, the best crack I can take at it, it's like a love story told through space and time.
Yes.
And it's two women who are on opposing sides of a war that is fought through time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's vibes, there's some science fiction, mostly in the sense that there is time travel, there is technology, but mostly it's vibes, and that's what it's about.
Yes. Spot on. That was so good. Help. And Natalie filled the silence. Great job. Hey, Eric. Thanks for coming. Everyone in the chat, let us know if you've read this before or if you're here just to see what we say about it. But if you haven't heard the hype online, believe the hype. Just believe it and just go read it. How to describe this book fully without spoilers or without crying?
Valid.
I guess I could say it's very conceptual. You can't go into it expecting a very literal story if people are like looking for the kind of style that it is. Yeah.
Eric says,
it's not a romance, like a capital R romance, not a 3-act structure kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've read it 4 times. I can cover for someone in here, I'm sure. Feel free to chime in at any point. Yes, please. Okay, so maybe we start with our rating. Should we go around and just kind of give our general rating?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go the other way. Let's go, Tina.
I haven't really thought about it, but like 5.
Hey.
I was really into it. I thought it was fantastic. I read it very fast, and I read it in spurts. I wish I'd kind of sat and read it kind of as one chunk, but I didn't really get the opportunity. So it's a book I definitely want to come back to and reread, I think. And for me, that I'm a very high ranker, though. I give everything 5 stars. Unless I hate it, then it's 2 stars. So it's like I'm either a 5 or a 2. So this is definitely a 5.
That's so different. Especially, I literally just watched a 2-star review from you like 30 minutes ago.
It was like
that's very accurate
this year.
Max.
I feel like I'm also fairly easy to please with most stuff like this. This is the first time I've reread a book in like ages. Both times I did read the whole thing in one sitting, which I think is probably the best way to read this. You can smash through it in like 3 hours if you really like hustle. I would give it 5 stars, but with the caveat that the second time round, because it was a reread, I was noticing things that I didn't notice the first time that I will talk about a bit later. But while they were like criticisms of it,
Mhm.
they didn't affect my enjoyment of it overall. So like
Cool.
it's gone from a 5-star to a 5-star with some criticisms.
Okay, that's valid. That's valid. Okay, Nelly.
So I gave it 5 stars, also similar to Tina in the sense of like I need to circle back. I need to circle
Yeah.
back because I read the whole thing, but I have like, you know, like 2 brain cells left at this point in the teaching semester, in the academic year. So I'm like, so much of it went right over my head, but I enjoyed enough of it that I'm like, it's 5 stars. I know it's gonna be a 5-star still in the reread, but I will have to come back to it.
Yay. Okay, cool. And I also gave it 5 stars, and I would say that I am a picky reader. This is my 3rd 5-star of the year, so I don't feel like I've been giving them out willy-nilly lately. I've actually given a lot of books like 3 or less, so good job, Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar. Great job.
When was the last time the book club had a unanimous 5-star? It must have been quite a while ago, right?
I know what it was. It was Escaping First Contact for sure, right?
Hey!
I'm kidding. It was probably like 3 stars.
No, that was really good, actually. I'm pretty sure I gave that one 4 stars, and I have the
Oh,
next 2
thank
books
you.
still sitting on my shelf. So
Don't worry about that. That was more of a joke. I'm not trying to pitch anything.
No, but true. Go ahead, pitch, go, Tina.
No,
I was like, Escaping First Contact, right? But then, like, imagine if your webcam slipped down and we see like the knife you're holding.
No, if I had to take a educated guess, I have a feeling it might have been Iron Widow. Did we all give that 5 stars?
I wasn't a
I feel
host,
like
so
it was all pretty high.
and I wasn't into it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was into it, but I can't.
Downgraded that one.
I can't even remember what I rated it, and I wasn't a host at that time anyway. But I loved it. I remember that. But
Fair.
yeah.
I'm excited for the second
definitely
book to come
rare.
out later.
My point was, it's definitely a rare thing.
Yeah.
Very rare for us all to be in the high ratings area. Yeah. So yes, go read it, pick it up. It's worth the hype. Rereading the book gives you a lot. Honestly, there's so many foreshadowing, timey-wimey moments that are so rich, much richer in hindsight and insane. I can't wait to reread this. 5 stars all around. Yes, go.
Yes,
now. Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about non-spoilery things. I think Natalie gave a great synopsis of what it was. And we all did mention that I read like poetry. So what do we want to say about the way that it's written?
I think I came into the chat before we went live at the tail end of you both saying something interesting about I would like to see how it was written. I'd like to know more about the writing process of it, considering it's 2 authors and 2 voices.
For sure. So if anybody has seen any like interviews of the authors or anything that they've talked about, feel free to drop a link because I'm really interested in figuring out how they divided this writing process.
I was thinking about the whole time I was reading. I was like, who's writing? Is one person writing one and like one voice and the other's writing the other? Or did they like collaborate? It was...
I feel like I wanted to be able to tell, but I couldn't really differentiate in character voices between the 2 POVs. I thought they were quite similar.
I will say, yeah, I had trouble sometimes. I had to flip back and be like, am I reading blue or red? Like who's speaking to whom in this point? And that was, I guess that's one criticism of it that I could say is that sometimes I felt that each voice kind of was similar. But I think because it's so poetic, it's hard. It would have been hard to kind of make one, unless they made one vastly unpoetic and the other very poetic. That would have been kind of funny. But I think it would have thrown off the whole tone. One's like, hey, what's up? And the other's like, blah, 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 blah.
Natalie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, like I did feel like it's hard to tell which was written by who, which makes me think that probably is both of them contributed to both sides versus like one wrote red and one wrote blue, precisely because of that. And I did have that same struggle at times that I'm like, wait, whose point of view am I oh, okay, it's red. Oh, it's blue. But I also agree with Tina. It's like, well, if it was drastically different, I also would have enjoyed it a lot less because part of what I liked about it was the prose itself. And
Mhm.
and I feel like a lot of it is carried by the prose itself. Like if it wasn't told this way, I don't know how successful the story would have been.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it prefaces each of the letters. Is it epistological? Is that the word for when you're reading about reading or reading about writing about reading, that kind of thing? But in between each of the letters that the characters are writing to each other, we get a very short chapter from that character's POV. So we get a little bit of a break in between the things that are a bit more poetic in understanding where the character is, what they're doing, what choices have led them, or what their actions were leading up to them writing this letter. So I think the way that it was broken up really helped me solidify like where I was in each moment.
Hmm.
If I recall, the one thing they did differently was writing the letters. They actually wrote those in turn and surprised each other with them. Ooh.
Maybe they're just stylistically very on the same page as writers then.
Oh, fun.
I'm not sure how they did the rest of the prose parts, but I do know about the letters. In my opinion, letters do feel very different. That's fair. Also, the book is officially classified. So, yes, vocabulary, yay! I wrote a chapter. Gladstone wrote the next chapter. I received the chapter. That's pretty great. That's super exciting. That sounds like fun.
But did they know at what the ending was going to be when they started? Or was it a constructive process as they wrote it? I'd be interested to know. And then going back and back editing little things in to the letters.
Yeah.
I think one of the... Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say something that I really appreciated about this book and that I just appreciate about stories in general is when every nook and cranny of a story is relevant, right? Like to me it didn't feel like there was any wasted space here because everything that ultimately we later found out was foreshadowing, or even just the way that the characters were existing in their plane was like just nuggets of information to help, I think, to help like thirst my quench of wanting to know how things worked. But the fact that it ultimately ends up staying more poetic and not fully answering all my questions kept redirecting my attention to their love letters. And it was perfect for me.
I think one of the things I liked, non-spoilery stuff about it, was the fact that it very quickly paints this picture of two factions, and using like very emotive words makes you assign a good one and a bad one. With one has like, it's very, all of the scenes that Red is in are very like destructive scenes. And then they use words for their ranks like commandant and stuff like that, and it's the agency. But then the other one, the blue, it's the garden, and they like tweak things as they go, and it's very much painted to be like a much more gentle machine. But then through the story it completely deconstructs both of them and is like they are both just machines trying to achieve a goal, and they are both doing bad things. I thought that was quite interesting, the way that it makes you have a preconception and then throws it away.
Seal says, I've read different things by both Max Gladstone and Amal El-Mohtar, and they do feel vaguely similar, in my opinion. It's a similar style of descriptive writing that I really like. If someone wants to recommend something by Amal El-Mohtar, that would be great, because I know we did read Max Gladstone previously as a book club and like had mixed bag of ratings. So I'd be interested in reading something by the other author as well.
The other one we read by... Sorry, go on, Matt. Keep interrupting people by accident.
No, going back to like the two factions, I did feel like even though there was that distinctness in the language used by both of them, making one seem more brutal at the forefront and the other less so, to me it was still very obvious early on. I'm like, these are the same thing, because ultimately from what we're able to see, I'm like, I don't see how this is benefiting anyone except their own self-interest, whatever those are. I'm like, because at different points we end up seeing both blue and red kill people and talk about both nurturing and destroying people, communities, etc. So I'm like, I don't see how one is better or worse than the other. Except for the language being used for what they are doing, but ultimately they're doing the same thing. So by the end, I really was like, yeah, it doesn't matter what side it is. It really doesn't.
I want to come back to your point, Natalie, about the organizations working for their own self-interest after the spoiler line, because I have some interesting stuff that I think is interesting to talk about.
Cool. Let's just get to some of these comments and then we can get ready to jump into spoilers. Let's see. Reading for annotation purposes, here's a fun thing. The first chapter where Blue wins is in a big, destructive, and harder sci-fi-esque scene. Yeah, so I think this is also something we talk about in the spoiler section about how like the background environment really kind of reframes the way that we look at these characters' motives. But red wins their little kerfuffle in a landscape that is more green and foresty. Just a great job mixing the two factions and mixing blues and red stories as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. So are we ready to jump into spoilers then?
Scylla, you get a bonus point for using the word kerfuffle.
Yes. Okay, so Max, you said you had some stuff you wanted to say with that.
Yes, I do.
Okay, go.
Right. So my strong feeling about the ending of this book is, if we're after the spoiler lines, yes, these are two machines doing things for their own self-interest, but so are red and blue. That is all they are. They are two people working to change history because they want to achieve a thing. And we're just kind of almost, because we get it from their point of view, we don't know what the goals of the agency and the garden are at all, right? But because we get the point of view of red and blue and not of the agency and the garden, we side with them. And I think there is no reason at all we should actually be thinking that they're doing a thing that is more right than the agency and the garden is trying to achieve.
Yeah, I didn't read it that way. I read both of them as being both completely bad. I never had a preconceived notion that blue was better. I always thought that both of them was just, I'm like, they're fighting. I thought the whole point of kind of the story was that it's all just about how, like to quote Fallout, war never changes. It's always someone fighting for something, and look at all the people that have died because of this useless battle. I thought that was kind of the overall theme. But I really like what you're saying about how like I might have not read it closely enough to really pull that. I would love to reread it and see if I had that. I'm just thinking back to like when I was reading it, and maybe I just did think that, but I read it, in such spurts that it didn't really catalog properly in my brain.
I mean, I feel like a lot of it for me, and part of my own enjoyment, was not about assigning either them or either of the factions like moral status, and more like literally part of the whole thing is that they're both very clever people, and part of why they become interested in each other is because they're so clever. It's like, okay, you're at my level, let's go. And it's just about, without caring about the consequences for other people, it's like showing off to each other. And there even comes a point in the story where they're like, haven't been able to show off in a while. This is so annoying. I want to have our competition going again. Let's go. Because part of what they're looking for is that like mental stimulation, because they're so good at what they're doing that no one else is meeting them there. And they just need someone to stimulate them in that way, because they're not getting, no other kind of stimuli really is working for them. And so again, it's not really about them being good or bad, or the different factions being good or bad. It's just they're doing this, as you said, actually, Max, for their own self-interest also. not necessarily either for either of their factions or for the common good of anyone, just because it's fun.
Yeah, I would agree with actually a lot of the things that everybody's kind of said. Yeah, for me, it became readily apparent very soon into the book that it was like everyone is doing things that are harming. War itself is an atrocity, and so it's not about that. It's more about the fact that I think it's in the title itself that in order for the war to end, someone has to lose. But how do we create a situation in which somebody actually wins fairly? And in this point, it was choosing that like the love conquers all, right? That like love is persistent regardless, and that the war will only end once there's this kind of this like coming together of understanding, which they themselves might be, for all we know, because we don't get a POV from anybody else, but might be like the pivotal moment where somebody is actually meaning to do so, to potentially end the war. So winning is a matter of perspective, and that the whole point of the entire thing is everyone is trying to change history to be able to make sure that history is written in their own favor. But that's the backdrop of it all. So I was under no illusion that they were morally good people, especially because from their POV that they're doing their job, right? So in the grand scheme of things, they're fighting for something that they think is much bigger than all of the people that have especially been sacrificed for their motives. But this is the solution that they've been able to find. So I didn't mind it so much. That makes sense.
I would also posit that, and I don't, when you read a book and you're like, am I looking too deep into this and seeing like jumping at shadows and seeing stuff that isn't there? But because for a big part of this story, they're falling in love with each other because of the footprints they leave and the way they affect the world around them and the things they create and the skill they show in doing what they do without ever having met this person and had that open conversation with them. I think it's almost, to me, feels like a bit of a discussion about how inseparable the art somebody creates is from who they are as a person, and the ability you do honestly have to fall in love with somebody through their art and what they put out into the world.
I'm going to think on that a little bit more, because where I thought you were going to go with this is about the cyclical nature of time, like the cyclical nature of everything that they've done, especially because by the end of the book that we know that Red goes back to that time in Blue's younger life and kind of inserts themselves to make sure that when Blue does eventually start going forward in time, that all of this will come to fruition. So I thought that's where you're going to go with that.
I feel like that's quite a trope in time travel sci-fi. The "it was me all along" trope. And I feel like there's a lot. I can't think of a lot of time travel sci-fi that tries to do something other than that. I come across it an awful lot, I think. Not to say that it's bad or I don't enjoy it, but just an observation on the fact that it's common.
Yeah. I mean, in a book that's so small, I'm actually like totally okay with the fact that it had certain tropes that I'm like, we don't need an answer. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like,
I like stuff that does leave gaps for you to fill in yourself. Like, you don't need the whole thing laid out as a blueprint in front of you.
Yeah, we didn't need like a backstory on how the agency came to be or et cetera, et cetera. It was like, this is just what it is, and accept it, and that's the vehicle within the story is told, Yeah.
See, this says, I think another point, especially looking at the title of the book and the very last line, this is how we win, for me at least, is picking yourselves and the love over your factions. And you were, yeah. I think that's how most wars ultimately, how we move past war in some sense, in the sense of like, yes, the winners of the war write the history books, and yes, the winners of the war will do whatever they need to do to make sure that the powers that be will remember it the way that they want it to, but that doesn't mean that there are not others who are doing the work of making sure that history is remembered correctly from both sides. That's where I get from that. Because the title is This Is How You Lose a Time War, but in the end, red and blue win because they choose each other over everything after all the... I love this so much!
I'll pull up my notes.
Mm-hmm. So well that we don't know the agency or guardian are fully, because the entire point is that they just are. It's terrifying. It's everywhere. There's no reason to it. They just are. Yeah, like, because there were so many scenes where I think some of my favorite scenes, putting the letters to a side because the letters were just like music to my ears. But like the scenes where they're discussing whatever political ploy that they're working on, but in the background they're murdering Julius Caesar, or like something else is happening that kind of solidifies where and when we might be, even though they do allude to multiple timelines. It was great. I was having so much fun.
My sci-fi brain that does tend to, Steph, you'll know as well, like pick holes in things, and it's hard to not do it. The one that the one hole I found in this one was I was confused about how much control they had over the mechanism of delivery of the letters, because there's a lot of them going to painstaking lengths, like over hundreds of years, needling something into the rings of a tree, or like feeding an owl something to later regurgitate. But then there's one that's like brought to read by a goose on a beach or something like that. But the letter starts, "Should this find you in a library?" I'm like, in what goose library? You know, like, why would you ever expect that letter to find them in a library? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's because, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know if right before that and another chapter before that they were alluding to, I think it might have been blue or red. I don't remember which one, but someone was talking about enjoying spending time in libraries, and so that was just kind of referencing to like, so it's, I don't know that it was necessarily supposed to be literally that you will be in a library when this goose finds you, but like, hey, I remember as someone who wants to get in your pants, I remember that you like libraries. That's all that matters. And to me, that was romantic.
For me, if someone sent me a letter by goose, that would be romantic. 10 out of 10.
As long as it's not a Canada goose, like I'd be like, oh, this is like they hate me. They want me to die.
Yeah. Why? What's wrong with Canada goose?
Canada geese are insane. They will fight you. They will try to bite you. I've been bitten by a goose. I think I know most people have been bitten by a goose that I know. They're just very territorial, and they're like isn't there our national bird or our Ontario bird? I can't remember. They're protected or something, so you can't even like fight them back. Like my dog isn't afraid of anything. He's not afraid. He's an 80-pound Shepherd Mastiff. He's afraid of Canada geese.
I mean, I have been bitten on the nose by a goose once at a petting zoo. I tried to hug the goose. It wasn't the goose's fault, but I don't know if it was a Canadian goose.
They migrate over here in the summer, Tina, and they're not protected here, so we'll get them for you.
I think
they poop everywhere too.
I think we need to have a clause at the end of this video of like, the IBC does not condone violence against geese.
No, listen, you don't speak for all of us.
Sorry, Tina, what were you gonna say? Let me see. Let me try to catch up with the chat.
Max, you have to know the difference. Like, it has to be the book club does not support, all right, violence against animals, but the individuals in the book club can support it.
Thanks, Natalie, for clarifying. That's the fine print at the bottom.
Yes, exactly.
What were you gonna say, Tina? I think I'm gonna cut you off by accident.
Oh no, I don't even know. Probably something else. Probably another goose anecdote about them attacking someone. Like.
Great. Oh, okay. So Amal El-Mohtar doesn't have another book out yet except The Honey Month, which came out in 2011, but she has a lot of short stories and poems out. I recommend checking out her website for those. Yay! Yay! Hello! Thanks for coming. Rose says Amal El-Mohtar has a 2025 book. I remember Tor announcing it. Oh, yay! That's exciting.
Oh.
Who loves to get in whose pants? People who send you geese.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, please. Yes. You have our stamp of approval. The River Roots is a fierce reworking of 17th century murder ballad about sisters who cannot be separated even in death. Source. Is that another book by the author?
So is that the 2025 book?
one?
Maybe, yeah. I think that sounds what it sounds like.
Oh, I'm gonna go on a
Cool.
NetGalley for that one.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of romantic things, one of my favorite moments. Can we talk about favorite moments, please? The idea of finding a tree in which a poem was written in it for me over centuries, like, just take it all. Yes, just like take my soul. I love you. Amazing. Just like that's emotional.
I mean, to me, I like the whole part of like the inevitability of like Blue dying, which she ends up not really dying, but regardless, that whole situation, it's like, well, of course she's going to read the letter. Like it doesn't matter that she was warned. To me, it feels very, and that's part of what I've been seeing a lot of talk of in TikTok is like the Eurydice and Orpheus thing. Like, he's going to turn around. The whole thing is that he loves her so much he cannot help but turn around. The fact that he turns around is that he loves her. Like, yes. You can't separate the things. So reading it, I was like, she's going to read the letter. It doesn't matter that she was warned that it's going to kill her. And ultimately, part of it, even Red herself was like, I'm going to leave her something in case, and it's going to be my words. It's not going to be what the agency wants me to say. It's going to be my last words to her. So it's like that whole thing, I was like, beautiful, incredible, amazing.
Pain. When Luke starts eating that plant, I start crying for every reread. Doesn't matter, I will cry. And the fact that that's technically the first time that they make physical contact.
No, but speaking of, no, go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
I think there were two bits that I really liked that stand out to me as favorite bits. One was I think it was Blue talking about Romeo and Juliet, about how she tracks it across every single timeline, and it's really 50-50 whether it's a tragedy or a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really, really interesting. And I liked the bit where she turns into the monster and kills the wolf in the scene where the other one is a kid. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And the bit with the goose was my third favorite bit.
The goose is very important to Max. Very important.
Tina, what about you?
I thought it was just great overall. I didn't have like a favorite scene between them, but I just love how they kept calling each other different variations of the color at the start of the letters. I just thought that was so fun. And like when I started realizing it was a pattern, I was like, what's the next one gonna be? And like there's like little references. I just thought it was so like it was like a way to kind of add personality to them as well, and kind of like a fun kind of aspect to what was really like a serious story, really. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's just like so many great like kind of like little paragraphs here and there that were just like so lovely, and yeah, it was just really good.
Yeah, I love pet names, especially for my pets. My pets have like a million names that are not their actual name. When it's time to like go to the vet, yeah. When it's time to go to the vet, I'm like, how do I spell your actual name again? Let's see. Oh, also, okay. So I I read again, I'm noticing so much more. And when Red comes back to the city where Blue died, she literally talks about how the sky is way colored now because Blue is gone. You even see blue in the sky anymore. I know, like that feeling of grief when the world just seems like a little bit duller after a major loss. It's illustrated so well here. Yes, thanks, Roro.
Oh, perfect.
Also, the scene with the wolf is everything to me as well. So when Red sees the young baby Blue and calls her monster girl. Have a thing, a type person.
It's very on brand.
Yes. Monster romance, maybe subplot. Cool. So what other things did we want to say about this? Any other favorite scenes or any other particular scenes or lines that stuck out to you?
For me, a lot of it just boils down to the language. So like stuff you were like about like the tree and carving it, the words into the tree and all the time it would have taken. And to me, I literally even pulled it up right now. I'm like, okay, I know one of these tabs is going to be it. To me, what I was like, oh my God, was, and who is this? It's Red. It's like, I'll be all the poets. I'll kill them all and take each one's place in turn. And every time love's written in all the strands, it will be to you. I'm like, that is romance. It's like, no, from now on, poetry about love. It's actually me writing to you. Forget the tree. I don't care about the tree. Forget the goose.
I also like how
mad.
the goose is the most important part.
One of the things I thought was odd was considering that they're picking up these letters over the course of their lives, and the letters are following a chronology. Like, how would I feel like I would be curious as to how that person knew where I was going to be next. And I feel like if we didn't have that chronology, the book would be very interesting in a different way. If we had all the exact same letters just jumbled up, and then we had to piece together the chronology as we read it, I feel like that would have been quite interesting. But I feel like that would have given me a lot of questions about the other person knowing where I was going to be when all throughout my life. I feel like I would have been like,
Stock
I wonder if it's something kind of like they know what the next offensive is going to be in the war. Like, you know how like in World War I, like the different battles, right? Like maybe they knew that, okay, next we're going to battle in the 1700s and then next we're going to battle in like the 600, you know. And so maybe they kind of knew where these next kind of clashes were going to be. Like, I wasn't sure if it was so much changing things here and there or if they were doing it in like trying to change something major and having like they had it all planned out and they just knew where the person was going next. Like, I don't know. I think that's one of the fascinating things about it is that we don't really know how the machinations of the war really work.
Yeah.
Like, is it a guerrilla war thing or is it a, you know, Revolutionary War thing or whatever, the Civil War thing? I'm like, what's those American wars? So many.
So many. Well, we did get like what I found interesting was that when they were talking about the braiding and the braids of time and space, that they alluded to being able to feel each other, especially once they were more conscious of each other. Like they mentioned that previously they'd seen each other in different times of history, different places of the battlefield. And that's kind of how they started to recognize that they were on the same kind of level. But that they became more conscious of this is the ground that you stepped on and this is the places that you've been.
If you want to read more Time War stuff, I have a recommendation off the back of this book, just for a short story. But I do have the PDF of it, so I will dump the short story in the chat. It's called, I think I may have done it a while back, but it's called A Dry, Quiet War by Tony Daniels. And it's about somebody coming home after the Time War. It's very, very good. Very good. I'll pop that in the Discord after.
Max coming in clutch. Thank you.
Always got to recommend.
What's that one? Oh, I talk about it all the time and I can't remember what it's called. It's like a classic sci-fi one. It doesn't.
Forever
It's not
War?
like going. Yes, thank you. It's a very easy title to remember. That one is really good. If you want
I really like that one.
a class, yeah, that one's fantastic, and it has good female characters too. It's not like a sexist one.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's important when we're talking about classic sci-fi.
Yeah, no, the female. One of the greatest things, and the saddest, best thing about the novel is the love story aspect I found about a couple that might have to be sent to different one has to stay behind and the other has to like get. I'm trying to remember. I read this book 20 years ago, and the other has to be the extent in, I guess, cryogenically frozen or something for the next war. So they're going to be separated by like 20 years in time, and like it's like that. I found that I still remember that aspect of the book being very kind of like harrowing and yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very time travel and very like time dilation as well.
Cool.
Which is always an interesting sci-fi thing.
It's kind of funny to see how the person that was writing it in the when was it? Did it come out the 80s? Or is it earlier
than that? Yeah,
like the 60s, about how he perceived time, like Earth would be, and all these different like in the futures.
Yeah, I love that kind
they're kind of funny, like they're kind of quaint. You're like, oh, okay, like.
Was that the book that had the bit about like state mandated homosexuality in it? Was that?
I think so. Yeah, that's the part that was funny.
I was like, wow.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I literally had another friend recommend that to me yesterday and said the same thing.
So weird. Yeah.
It was very
great. That was great. I love speculative fiction that kind of just flips things on its head and says like, okay, now what are you gonna do about this? Yeah. I love it. Like that. Oh, it's even better here, in my opinion, because it's not just about the fact that the world is duller. It's Red not even being able to refer to the sky anymore when she wants to say Blue's name, but can't because she fears of being overheard. The fact alone that they adapt all these pet names because they don't want to say each other's names at all. Not the E-poet line, the best line in the book.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. It's the best line in the entire fucking thing.
Yes, I wish I could have tabbed this. This I got from my library, and I'm very sad that I don't own a copy, so I wish I could tab it. I'm going to go back and do that at some point.
I took a picture of my favorite line with my phone.
Really? What is it?
Yeah. I guess, okay. Let me see if I think I have to provide, let me open it. I have it somewhere. I'm like an old lady. I'm like, I can't see. I need reading glasses. What I liked about their love story is that it had like the passion in it as well, but it also kind of had like we're tired of this. We just want to like be together and like just be calm together. And so I really liked this line where I can't remember who's saying it, and it's like the smallest little like I don't even know what page number it's on, so I can't tell you who said it. But when I think of you, I want to be alone together. I want to strive against and for. I want to live in contact. I want to be a context for you and you for me. And I just thought that was nice, the kind of like normal life they want to have together and they can't. And I was like, oh.
You know, when I had a feeling that Blue was going to die? When Blue was at peace. When Blue was at peace with, I don't even know what time period it was, but that they had a partner and that they had a child and that they were just kind of like spending their time in the meadows braiding the grass. And I was like, oh no, she's too happy. It's going to hurt me.
Oh no, it's catharsis.
I always wondered how that worked, like with the like them living the lives. Like, do they just kind of like jump into this person's life and are like a passenger in their head?
Or like
how are they? Yeah, or do they have these like full lives? And I'm like, so they have this full life with this person they might not like? Like, I'm like, are they acting the whole time? I was curious about that. I don't know if maybe I'm reading it wrong, but what do you folks think?
I think that there was an element of slipping into a role, like sleeper agent kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
I definitely got that vibe. I didn't feel like they were ever leading lives that they were over the moon to be living.
Yeah.
But
there was one particular scene where Blue goes to talk with Garden at a bar, and Garden has taken over the body of a person who is at the bar because I think after the conversation's done and Garden leaves, that the person kind of like zones back in, and Blue has to pretend that they were just like, you know, two ships in the night. Oh, good drinks, right? And then leaves. So that person doesn't even recognize that they were just having a full-on conversation that they can't remember having. So I thought that was really interesting.
It's also brought up with Commandant that there's this one scene, and it even describes her a few times as being like, oh, she holds on to it too tightly. She's not used to having hands. And so like it is that inhabiting of bodies there in some way, because again, it's not like they explain it. So the thing works this way. And so yes, no, but it is insinuated that they can go into people's bodies for a time.
How?
My brain is like,
are they actually just like worms? Like just like crawl into people's ears?
Are they time parasites? Is that what we're alluding to?
I would read a book about
astral blobs.
I think actually, you know what? In the earlier chapters, I think it did actually talk about specifically the agency being bodiless.
Yeah.
Where it talked about them like moving through space and subsisting off of like solar background radiation and stuff like that. But I don't know if it's the case for Blue, because Blue, when they went to like the garden universe, it was all like fungus. Or I feel like, did I dream that, or was it like all
like, are they myceliums and the other ones are like,
that's the impression that I got. So I feel like, but those two things are very similar, just on like one on a macro, one on a microscopic level. Like they're still all present. They're still both essential in order for everything else to like subsist off of that, right? Like the reason we have matter is because dark matter is like the opposite and encompasses it. So it's just like it still gives this vibe of like omnipresent. And I'm totally okay with not knowing.
I think it's kind of fun to think about.
So really what this book boils down to is ghosts versus mushrooms, which I think is pretty cool. That would be my tagline on the front if they got me to review it. Like, sick book, Ghost versus Mushrooms. Love it.
I read this other classic sci-fi book. What the heck was it called? I reviewed it like last month. Oh, I can't. Andromeda Gun. And it was about this astral being that takes over this man, set in the 1850s. It was like a Western. And like, but the whole main premise of the book is that this astral being gets the hots for these two ladies and tries to get the guy to decide which one he likes. It's so wild. And he ends up, there's a woman, I guess he's a few years older than this woman, and he's a few years younger than the woman's mom, and he ends up going with the woman's mom in the end because they're more in common. And it's a wild twist. I was like, what's going on in this book? Wait, so weird.
Does the ghost take over the guy, or is he just like, I'm gonna live vicariously through you?
He kind of like lives in his head, and the man doesn't know he's in there, and he kind of suggests things to him. So the man's whole goal originally is just to rob a bank, but the ghost thing kind of convinces him to stick around because he's like, I'm curious about what these human bodies do.
It sounds like a rom-com.
It kind of is, but it's just like really, but it's like mainly a Western. That's the only bit of sci-fi in it. And in the end, I'm going to spoil it for you. In the end, the spaceship that it showed up in looks like a rock, and it's this massive rock, and they need a rock to build a foundation for the public bathrooms, and they use the spaceship as the public bathroom foundation. And I'm like, what is going on in this book? Like, how much acid does this take?
Imagine having so much real life and relationship trouble that a space ghost has to be your wingman to like sort everything out. Like comes down to Earth, he's like, whoa, this guy is having a terrible time. I better fix this before I go.
That's so weird. That's the weirdest book.
Great. Okay, so it says, I believe they do have full lives. I believe they have short spaces for your seniors sometimes, but all for the good of their respective agencies, basically. Because there's moments, like, for example, where Blue is living with the husband, or an early one where Red is with Genghis Khan. I was interpreted Red and Blue as not inhabiting bodies that much, but Garden and Commandant do because they're fundamentally inhuman and incorporeal at this point. You know, that is an interesting point, because wasn't there a scene where Red is shown a picture of Blue that was taken by the Commandant, and Red recognizes Blue, but I don't know if it's necessarily because Blue maintains the same features or if it's just like I would know you in anywhere and anybody because we have that connection.
I think
I
it's
think
It's
that
more
they
romantic.
Oh,
yeah, it's more romantic the second one, but I think it's they said they recognize them from a specific encounter.
Mm.
They were like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I bumped into that person with that face on blah blah blah."
Mhm.
I do think they say something like there is some. It's never going to be the exact same face, but there are some similarities. I'm trying to remember where it says
Yeah,
that, but it's
they were
around
saying
that
like
same. Yeah,
they were saying
when
like
they're
the way
talking
they
about.
move and stuff like that was
Mm.
recognizable immediately.
Mm.
Hmm.
It's so romantic. This pocket where Blue was grown was very planty and fungal. Closest way to describe it. Ghosts versus mushrooms. Perfect. You need to post that, and hopefully that Twitter post of ghosts versus mushrooms will become as like viral as the post that made this go
Well,
viral.
the bigulous dickulous post.
There's a moment she sees the picture and she does recognize Blue, but she also says Blue has different faces too, which Red also knows. So it's a thing of both, depending on how you want to interpret it. Okay. They do have bodies. Blue, for example, keeps carrying Red's letters literally inside her.
Yeah, that's
Red
true.
carries weapons inside her body. She remarks on feeling empty when they disarm her. That made me so nervous. Can we talk about Seeker?
We
What?
can.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you want to talk
Yes,
about?
go for it.
Okay, so the anxiety that I felt for most of the book until I realized who Seeker was, and that everything was gonna like come full circle. It just gave me so much anxiety, and they didn't give me much to work with. I was just like, who is this person? Is it an outside person? For me, I was thinking like, our garden and agency both working together, and are they both benefiting from the fact that there is war? Is this going to turn into like, you can't have peace without chaos kind of thing, and this is their way of maintaining normalcy in the universe in order to make sure that life progresses, or for something like that? And the fact that I was wrong on everything, so happy.
I like
No,
the way
meanwhile,
they,
I saw it. I was like, no,
Yeah.
Seeker. I was not immediately, but pretty early on. I was like, Seeker either has to be red or blue. Like, I wasn't sure on which one. But I'm like, there's only two options, and the option is red or blue. Especially once Red finally manages to have a confrontation with Seeker, but then Seeker still manages to disappear. I'm like, then it has to be someone at her level, which basically leaves her. It's like,
Mhm.
well, no one can best Red that isn't Red. So it has to be. So once it got confirmed, I was like, I knew it.
the first time I read it, I really thought that the big reveal was going to be that Red and Blue are the same person from different points on the timeline. That's what I thought was going to happen the first time.
So they were falling in love with themselves?
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the twist.
Oh.
That would have been interesting.
I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah. I was reading it like, where's this going?
Okay. By the way,
I kept looking for the part where Red sees the picture of Blue.
okay.
And so she says, I recognize her from the field. I saw this face in the Battle of Abergast. She has others, but always there's a similar stillness about the eyes and a cruel, clever twist to the mouth. She shines through. Red does not say that part. So yeah, it's more like about kind of what you were saying, like how she carries herself. So Red can still see that, but technically the faces are different.
Mhm.
I do want to say I am consistently impressed with your ability, Natalie, to go back and get the receipts. It's really good.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm like, I know where this was somewhere. I'm like, okay, I'll find it. It might take me a minute, but I'll get there.
Also, the moment where Secret gets revealed as read, the book repeats itself verbatim with the whole working ash and blood into a dough and eating it. It's word for word. Yes, I love that. I love that everything just comes back. So good. And you know, I will say, I this probably has to be made public. I'm putting it on the internet. My like least favorite trope of all time is the return from the dead, where like a character dies and they don't stay dead. They come back, and I'm like, for me, it's usually 99% of the time, like voids all of the tension that I was feeling up to that character's passing. But in this case, go, be free, be happy. Yes. But also that's just because like they were building in from the beginning the cyclical nature of time. So it wasn't unexpected.
Yeah, I think that's the key part, because I'm the same. Like, that's one of the tropes I hate the most. I'm like, let people stay dead, please. Stop this. Just stay dead. But since it was built almost from the very, very beginning, even though at the time we didn't know what we were building up to, so like Seeker was there, we didn't really know what Seeker's goal was. It didn't matter as much, because then it's like, oh, yes. So it was all connected. So naturally, yes, the whole point now that we know she died is to bring her back. So I didn't mind.
Any trope that has like a lack of consequences is a bad trope, in my opinion. I think it's like that is second only to the "and it was all a dream" ending. You know, it's like almost that bad.
Yeah. I've never seen a book do that trope well. So if anybody has suggestions.
There was one I read recently, something about evil mermaids. It was a novella.
Hell yeah.
The salt grows heavy. Check that one out.
Oh yeah, that's by Cassandra Caw?
Yes.
Is that the one with the plague doctor in it?
Yes.
Yeah, I read that one as well. I quite like that one.
Yeah, I thought that one worked.
Yeah.
Wait, but now that we know the trope, did we just spoil the book?
No.
Okay.
I won't remember.
That's great.
Tina's like, read it in like a year. You'll forget.
Yeah.
Put it on the 2025 list.
That's bad. I feel like authors can really only pull that off if they work with it very intentionally, because otherwise it can easily lead to tension being lost. Yeah. I mean, I go vaguely insane about the Chorus of Dragon series and that they're returned from the dead, but it's implemented so well in the world building. Oh, yay. Yes. Okay, cool. Are there any other things, any other thoughts that we want to say about This Is How You Lose the Time War before we introduce what we're reading for next month?
I think we've said it all. And the best is what we got. The best thing is ghosts versus mushrooms. Honestly, that's the best thing we got out of this discussion.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so next month, I don't have a physical copy yet, but we are reading Bluebird by, I think I'm saying this name right, C.L. Perlot. So I have the synopsis up here on my monitor that I could read to everyone. So if anybody's interested, this is the line on Goodreads that made me drop it into the Discord. And if it sucks after that, I'm going to be so sad, because this line says lesbian gunslingers fight spies in space. Yes. So 3 factions vie for control of the galaxy. Rig, a gunslinging, thieving rebel with a cause, doesn't give a damn about them, and she hasn't looked back since abandoning her faction 3 years ago. That is, until her former faction sends her a message, return what she stole from them, or they'll kill her twin sister. Rig embarks on a journey across the galaxy to save her sister, but for once, she's not alone. She has help from her network of resistance contacts, her taser-wielding librarian girlfriend, and a mysterious bounty hunter. If Rig fails and her former faction finds what she stole from them, trillions of lives will be lost, including her sister's. But if she succeeds, she might just pull the whole damn faction system down around their ears. Either way, she's going to do it with panache and pizzazz.
Very nice.
Can I tell you a
sounds
little tiny mini spoiler about panache and pizzazz?
Wait, in relation to this book?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't remember. I read this book like when it first came out a year ago or a year and a half ago, and I think those are the names of her guns.
Oh, it's so cool.
That is so Devil
It's
May
just
Cry.
very early on. I didn't really. I'm pretty sure. I might be just making this up, or maybe I hope that. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
If it isn't the case, then Tina, that's your new job, is to write that into something because it's sick.
Yeah. The fact that this
I'm pretty
sentence
sure
is literal. That's so great.
It did strike a memory to me. So unless I'm like just out of my mind, I don't know. It's possible. Anyway, I really liked that book. I will not say anything else about it. I thought it was really enjoyable. I thought it had a few kind of things about it that I didn't love, but I loved a lot of it. So
Cool. All right, everybody. So thanks so much for watching Interstellar Book Club. If you want to join us, the Discord is linked below, along with the link to all of our hosts' various social media, so you can follow them for content or just get notifications whenever we're going to hang out and do stuff. And if you want to vote for the books that we read in the future, don't forget to join the Discord so you can be a part of our polls. And I think that's going to be it for May. Yay, we did it.
Yeah.
Woo. All right, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. See you later.
okay, bye.
Bye.